What's going on, my people? How y'all doing? Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. I don't know about y'all, but I'm happy because I'm on vacation. This is the first time I've been on a vacation like this since high school. So I'm excited. We up in here. Got this good Saturday, OTSOG Saturday Live. Got my good guest up in the building. She's no stranger to the platform. The one, the only, the PhD. What's going on, my sister?
Hey y'all, hey, how y'all doing?
What's going on out here? So we got a fun topic that we're getting into. The Iceman Inheritance is the book that we're using that text as a framework, and we're going to see if we fully agree with it or not. Also, we're using that to link to the psychology of racist serial killers. And so it's Michael Bradley's book, The Iceman Inheritance: Prehistoric Sources of Western Man's Racism, Sexism, and Aggression. And I thought this would be a good show. And this show is actually inspired by our guest, the PhD. So I appreciate that, because I remember you mentioning that you were reading the book and you said it several times. Oh, Miami just won.
Hey.
Miami just won. Well, you had mentioned that you read the book. So I was scrolling through some videos and I came across the brother Dalio Kenyatta. And I'm familiar with Dalio Kenyatta from Dr. Jared Ball's platform. And he's doing a breakdown of the Iceman Inheritance. So we're going to look at that. We're also going to look at it through the lens of Jeffrey Dahmer, who we know who Jeffrey Dahmer is. And then another white guy, Joseph Paul Franklin. And I hate that we have the same first name, but we do. Joseph Paul Franklin. He was a racist serial killer. So we're going to look at white supremacy and how white supremacy breeds people like this, the culture of white supremacy, and what is the foundation of the culture of white supremacy that would breed such terroristic minded, malicious people, and not just a few of them, but a good number of them. But also just looking at the effects of white supremacist culture and how everywhere white supremacist culture goes, it breeds destruction. Nothing else can survive in an environment where white supremacy is the dominant culture, because it destroys everywhere it goes. So why does it do that? So we're going to use Michael Bradley's text to help us get a good understanding of the culture, the nature, the behavior, the mindset of the white supremacists, and not just the white supremacists, but the violent white supremacists. So that's what we're getting into today. We're having some fun. My man Dion White, as always, first up in the building. My main man, how you doing, brother? How you doing? Thank you. Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, or Rosh Hashanah, whatever you celebrate. All that. Renee, what's going on, Renee? How you doing? We up in the building. You know how we doing. This is gonna be a good one, because we're getting into the minds of these crazy people. My man said he's here and present. Yes. Hey, I'm Renee. I am so happy about this vacation. I am so happy. Okay, everybody off in the Lone Star State of Texas. How you doing, Christine? Thank you as always for being here. So I will say I have not. So with the Iceman Inheritance, I have not read the book, but I do have a synopsis of the book and some summaries of the chapters of the book that I'm using that we can get into. But that's why I'm using Dalio Kenyatta's video for a frame of reference, as well as PhD, because she's read some of the book. So that way we can have a good frame of reference to understand what we're talking about. So getting into it. SEA says, like, comment, subscribe, and share this. Please send it out as far and wide as possible. Hit that like button. New York is in the building. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I'm all the way down here in Florida. It's about 65 degrees. It's almost Christmas time. As long as it's a 70-degree Christmas day, I'm good. We don't like it to be cold down here. People who like it cold don't move to Florida. All right, so that's how we doing it. So PhD, how you been?
Good, sir. Doing a little bit of traveling, getting ready to head off to Africa a couple days after Christmas. So
Okay. Well, you know, we got to wish you a safe trip to
thank
go
you.
out to the motherland and connect with the people there. So if you see anybody there that got a head shaped like mine, tell them I said what's up.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take a picture of them. So y'all can reconnect.
Anybody with a black IP head, there you go. So we're gonna jump this thing off. Oh, Cali, y'all said Cali is foggy but nice today. That's what's up. I'm glad it's some good weather somewhere in the country, because I know it's cold other places. So we're gonna kick this thing off. We're looking at Jeffrey Dahmer first, his crazy self. Jeffrey Dahmer is basically going to be explaining why he did what he did. But before we get into that, let me read this. Get into my notes. It says Christmas in Africa. Yes, I know, right? We're jealous. I'm jealous. I'm gonna jump in a suitcase. I don't weigh that much. So let me read this to you all for my notes before we let Jeffrey Dahmer tell on himself. It says, Michael Bradley's central thesis is modern Western aggression, racism, sexism, and a drive to dominate derived from deep prehistoric events in Ice Age Europe, especially interactions between anatomically modern humans and Neanderthals, who would be the Caucasians or the Iceman, and those populations and selective pressures of glacial environments. He argues those pressures produce psychobiological adaptations, sexual maladaptions, high aggression, certain social structures that were transmitted culturally and genetically, and later gave rise to features of Western civilization to patterns of domination. Bradley mixes archaeological, anthropological, and speculative psychobiological arguments. The book is influential in some Afrocentric and radical circles, but is contested by mainstream anthropology because of the provocative text. And it says that it's not well liked in a lot of white circles, basically what it's getting into. So chapter 1, so it's gonna break the things down chapter by chapter when we get into, and we're gonna let Jeffrey Dahmer talk, and then we're gonna start getting into it chapter by chapter as he goes, and as Dalio Kenyatta goes. But I did want to lay that framework, that groundwork for what Bradley is saying, that the environment that they came from, that Ice Age environment, that environment of scarcity, that bred that aggression, that bred that need to dominate, that bred that some would say that insecurity that they could have in them. And it's always like human contact, human interaction, from my understanding and my studying of history, has always had conflict in it. Human beings have had conflict, but from what he's saying, human beings and Neanderthals come in contact with themselves, of course, there's going to be conflict. And so, all right, that's what Bradley is saying. So let's see if what Jeffrey Dahmer is talking about is lining up in a modern sense with what Michael Bradley is talking about from his historical sense and bringing it to this modern times. And so this is an interview of Jeffrey Dahmer from, what's this, Inside Edition. So it's back in the days. You can tell by his glasses that this was back in the 80s. So, all right. So I'm sure it's not like it's not like them white supremacist circles, especially with Dr. Clark doing the introduction on it as well. So let's let Jeffrey Dahmer tell on himself. So please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share.
Graphic.
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
What were your fantasies about?
They control, power, complete dominance. They became reality.
Was it pleasure?
Well, dang, right out the gate. Dang, we ain't even go 10 seconds into it, and he told us control, dominance, power. So he's not too far off already. And real quick, do want to give a quick shout out. Thank you, super chat from DSB. Oh, excuse me, for becoming a member for 3 months. My brother DSB, Shalom, my warrior brother and family in the chat. Thank you, my brother DSB, for becoming a member for 3 months. Thank you. But listen to what he said. I'm gonna let's run it back. Let's let him say it again. Right out the gate, he's talking about dominance, power, and control already off the gate, and sexual fantasies.
Very graphic.
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
What were your fantasies about?
They were sexual fantasies of control, power, complete dominance. They became reality.
Was there pleasure in that fantasy?
There was excitement, fear, pleasure, all mixed together.
Jeffrey Dahmer fulfilled his fantasies by murdering and dismembering 17 young men. In time, his desires became more extreme, his deeds more grotesque. Listen to him talk about the most unnatural things in the most matter-of-fact of ways. That's when you realize that none of it has touched him.
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart and the arm muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me. At first, it was just curiosity, and then it became compulsive. Then I tried to keep the person alive by inducing a zombie-like state. By injecting first dilute acid solution into their brain or hot water. And it never did completely work.
Could someone like you be stopped? Could you be helped?
No, I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any satisfaction.
He became so warped by his evil impulses that he even took a victim's head with him to work at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
What? This is true psychopathic, psychotic behavior, diva. Like, so just your first thoughts of listening, or your first reactions to what he's saying before we even compare it to the text.
Gosh.
Right.
Well, it reminded me of something that we saw Dr. Marimba Ani talk about, where she talked about how they are lacking in the ability to connect, right? To something within themselves, right. To connect to something within themselves, to something greater than themselves, to one another. Like they have a problem, a fundamental problem of connection and being able to connect. Right. And so for him, carrying parts of the people with him and eating them was his way of trying to connect. That this is how sick their entire culture is, because it all came out of an environment where it was cold, and so it bred that scarcity mindset and that survival of the fittest mindset, and that every man for himself, that rugged individualism. But this is the outcome of it at some point, right? So you keep drawing it out to its logical conclusion, and at some point you're going to end up at this person.
Yes. So my Tuesday videos, I have actually been breaking down that Urugu lecture. And what I like about it is she's talking about taking it from the doggone cosmology. So when creation was happening, basically the European ripped itself away from creation, ripped itself away from that feminine aspect, but from the whole of creation. And it's an incomplete being who will do any and everything from the material level to feel complete. And that's that disconnection that you're talking about. And that basically that connection is through like the material world, the technological world. Kind of reminds me of, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, by possessing things or controlling things. Right.
Kind of remind me of have you ever seen the series American Gods?
Yes.
You kind of remind me of that, like the old gods and their war against the new gods, the spiritual world versus the technological world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they are definitely in this technological, this physical world, but they sick in it too. Like he carrying around skulls.
Right. And the even sicker thing is nobody around him noticed. And so that just goes to show you how sick they all are, that you could be exhibiting this level of depravity and nobody around you even noticed.
Amina, we are happy you are still here, my sister. She said she grew up in the town with him and walked past his apartment complex. Oh man, that is crazy. That is crazy. What's going on, my brother Nemesis? We're talking about we're using the book The Iceman Inheritance and comparing the text to the events, lives, and confessions of racist white serial killers, namely Jeffrey Dahmer and Joseph Paul Franklin, and looking at the psychology and the mindset and the culture that will breed white, terroristic, psychopathic people like that. So that's what we're talking about today. Oh man. It says, in oppression, everyone has the potential to be oppressive. Mr. Smith syndrome from the Matrix movie. Hey, Dora of L, I hear you. Renee says, socio means the people are able to move in social circles. Psychopathic means exactly what he's saying. There's a movie Taking Lives. I got to check that out. Taking Lives. I heard about that. So, all right, let's let this fool get back to telling on himself. Please hit that like button. Please hit that like button.
Jeffrey Dahmer exhibited some disturbing behavior early on. He began drinking heavily as a teenager, dropped out of college, was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Tragically, one of his murder victims would be that boy's brother.
Do you know what started it? Was there any kind of incident that you can remember?
To this day, I don't know what started it. And the person to blame is sitting right across from you. That's the only person. Not parents, not society, not pornography. I mean, those are just excuses.
His macabre 13-year crime spree finally ended when this man, Tracy Edwards, brought the police to the infamous apartment. Like the others, he had gone there with the promise of money.
He was listening so much because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point. I hit him and I ran.
What was the turning point for you that made you suddenly realize that you had done something terribly wrong, something you should be sorry for?
It was the night of the arrest. I have no memory of what happened during the 6 hours before the last victim ran out of the apartment. I heard a knock on the door, and the police were there with the last victim. They asked me where the key was to the handcuffs. My mind was in a haze. I sort of pointed to the bedroom, and that's where they found the pictures. And they yelled, "Cuff him." I was handcuffed, and it was just the realization that there was no point in trying to hide my actions anymore. The best route was to help the police identify all the victims and just make a complete confession.
When it was revealed that most of the victims were black.
Well, probably because he's satisfied and he got off by now. It's all right. So it's time to go ahead and do something different because he done got off. Like he got a little bit of his fix. It's time to do something different. He bored now. Like that's wild. That's wild. So comparing this to the Iceman Inheritance. And so Part 1, Chapter 1. Part 1 is the contention and the Iceman inheritance. Chapter 1 is Greek gifts in Western technology. You say he worked in the chocolate? Oh man, he worked in the chocolate factory. That's that is crazy. Man, there's so many jokes with that. So it says Bradley opens by examining Western technological and material accomplishments, Greco-Roman science, metallurgy, shipbuilding, all those things. He asks whether these accomplishments meant the West is innately superior, or whether they are the product of specific prehistoric adaptations and historical contingencies. He begins to link technology to ecological and psychobiological histories rather than moral or civilizational superiority. Basically, like we was talking about earlier, them linking their ability to be powerful to the things that they can manifest on this physical world to help them dominate others, i.e. technology, i.e. weapons, and those things that gives them the, I guess, the advantage that goes along with their warlike mindsets and their culture of domination, the culture of seeking power, the culture of wanting to rule the world, all those things mix in one. And that gives you this group of people who are going to go out and just, like one dude, so I was watching one video, he was like, he just wanted to see somebody's head just pop. That satisfies them. Because listen to what he's saying. He's like Jeffrey Dahmer said, I did all this crazy stuff. Hey, I walked around with people's skulls. And then one day I just said, I don't want to do this no more. And I'm going to go help the police find all the bodies that I killed. What?
Right.
What? That's crazy.
Right. But that's them. And so one of the key things that, that part of the book you were talking about points out is that, yes, so their culture or their worldview is focused on technological especially advancement, progress. But the other side of that is the destruction that goes along with it, right? So not only what you're doing to the land and the environment, but the way it impacts people in society and, how it leads them to acting, right? Once you start getting all the being disconnected from society or the people around you, you start seeing a lot of this very heinous type of behavior. Whereas it's less common when you are very immersed in your, social network or the people around you. When you have closer relationships with those people, it's less likely that you go engage in some wild behavior like this guy Dahmer. And if you do, people are going to notice quickly, right? Because they're connected to you, so they're going to see the little idiosyncrasies or the change ups in your behavior.
Right. Yeah, it's and like a couple people have said in the chat, Dahmer didn't get away with this just by himself. People knew what was going on. What's Nemesis says, police aided Dahmer in killing the young Asian boy whose picture they just showed. See, it was like stuff like that. Because I think back to other stories that I've covered to where the police are aiding the white people in terrorizing other people. So it's not uncommon, and I wouldn't put it past them. But this is wild. This is wild.
Right.
Straight Urugu. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, so I always want us to kind of focus on what does this mean? How should this inform our behavior? Right. And so one of the things with them being disconnected from spirit, from each other, from, all that stuff, having a soul, what does that mean? And how should that impact our behavior or inform our behavior? And so what that means is when you are having these relationships with these people, understand that the relationship is probably very different on your end than it is on theirs.
Yes. Well, how have they always viewed us? Why did white people bring us to America? We have been brought here to be labor, to be workers, to be chattel, to be tools to use for their advancement. It's always been since they brought us here. Why would it change now?
Right.
And so if you put yourself in the environment to be used as a tool, you have to understand what you signed up for. So
yep.
So yeah. So all right. Back to crazy.
Or homosexual. People in Milwaukee were incensed. Many felt that was why he went after them and why the police didn't seem to care when their families reported them missing.
10 of your 17 victims were black. Were they racially motivated?
It was not racially motivated. It was not sexual preference. It was just to find an obsession with the best-looking young man I could find.
While you just heard him say that his sexual preference had nothing to do with the killing, he has not come to terms with his homosexuality.
Never understood it. There was no use trying to fight it because I couldn't rid myself of it. It was too powerful and persistent.
Do you dislike it?
Yes, it's caused a lot of problems for me. A lot of conflicts and unanswered questions.
The conflicts remain with him, and so do his compulsions. But in prison, he finally cannot act on his savage desires.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
Boy, does he come across as cold-blooded. Did you see any remorse?
Well, he said, but I'm not sure he associated
I don't care about what they talking about. Let's get back to Dahmer, but he had he was sexually attracted to these black men. What he's saying, he had a sexual because it's like he was looking for the best looking people, and it just so happened to be black. But it makes me think about Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and the white people's undercover or unconscious, or even some of them conscious sexual desires for black people, but it also goes into them needing to have that to feel fully white and to have that full position of domination over us. And so, but going back to your question, like hearing him say this and then thinking about how we go about living our lives and wanting to be a part of the structure of white supremacy, like we got to think about what we're doing and the people that we're trying to align ourselves with, or to work with, or even to use for our own personal advancement. You know, on one hand, we cry racism. On the other hand, we want to align ourselves with these diabolical people. We have to check ourselves.
Right. Absolutely. You know, especially like you said, in work scenarios, I always tell black people, they not really trying to be your friend. They call it status checking. They just want to make sure you don't have nothing more than they got or what they think you're supposed to have. Right. So they're constantly doing a comparison with you. And so a lot of times we think that these are genuine, organic relationships when it's a very goal-directed behavior on their end. And so the important thing for us to know is, you know, the relationship probably ain't that deep. And if it is, just understand that if it ever becomes beneficial or expedient for the relationship not to be that deep no more, then understand that it won't be that deep no more for them on their end. So just being aware of who we dealing with and what to expect.
Right. And that goes into us understanding that they are disconnected from nature. And it goes like we seek, historically we would seek to build in relation to nature. Like I was just having a conversation with my coworkers, one of my coworkers who went down to Machu Picchu in Peru, and he was talking about the structure and the stones and how everything was built and how everything was aligned with nature. And it made me think about today's show. And then I'm thinking about the structures that white people build that's not in alignment with nature that crumble. So it's two different mentalities and two different ways of living and two different lenses, two different worldviews, and understanding that when we try to assimilate into something that is not natural to us, how harmful it is to us because we take ourselves out of alignment with nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to get right. So drink water, put shea butter on, try to stay away from these white people stuff. And Nemesis says the boy's name was, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but that's his name. He was a 14-year-old, but the police and typical profiling allowed Dahmer to suggest he was an adult. That's crazy. Says, question, is it reasonable to suspect that his savage desires are being repeated and covered up in current missing? And yeah. So Jeffrey Dahmer and the other white guy that we're going to profile are just examples of the larger culture of white supremacy. So yes, I do believe that. Yes, my answer is yes to your question. Yes. So all right, let's go.
Installed them myself in the apartment. I had.
Let me take it back.
The nation is talking about serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer speaking for the first time.
Why was it so easy, though, for you to hide it all?
I bought security systems, installed them myself in the apartment. I had a video camera in the corner of the room.
Today, Nancy Glass continues her remarkable interview with serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
It is one thing to read about his crimes, quite another to hear how dispassionately this killer talks about his grisly deeds. Nancy Glass joins us now to continue her exclusive interview with Dahmer. Nancy.
So Jeffrey Dahmer is now in jail serving 15 consecutive life terms for his terrible crimes. Wisconsin does not have the death penalty. In prison, he is getting therapy, but he says it hasn't helped him. He spends his time reading the Bible and volumes of mail. I asked him if he was afraid of what might happen in prison, and he said, no. What difference does it make if someone comes after him, because he doesn't care if he lives or dies.
Travis the champ. I know. We know where we at. We know where we at. That's why we say what we say. We know where we at. That's when we don't complain, because we know where we at.
He prowls gay bars, picking up men to seduce and murder. Jeffrey Dahmer says his desire to control and possess his victims drove him to inhuman acts on the living and the dead. He was a killing machine out of control.
How should you be punished?
Well, there's no question that I deserve the death penalty. I've wondered myself why I don't have the death penalty. That's what I deserve. I deserve death.
What do you think happens after you die?
Right. That's the big unknown. I've had thoughts of suicide, but I just haven't been able to carry them through. So I don't know what the future will hold.
In the past, Jeffrey Dahmer was very sure of what he wanted and how to get it. 17 young men would die at his hands. Later, when he made this confession to the police, he included crimes too grotesque to repeat on television, too gruesome to be believed. Dismemberment, cannibalism, and worse. And he was cunning enough to get away with it for 13 years.
Why was it so easy, though, for you to hide it all?
I desensitized myself to it. I don't know. I went to great lengths. I bought security systems, installed them myself in the apartment. I had a video camera in the corner of the room, installed locks on the doors, sirens and stuff in case anyone broke into the apartment.
And although his victims' body parts were in the apartment, when his father and stepmother came to visit, they detected nothing.
They said it was absolutely clean, perfect.
Right.
How'd you hide from them?
Everything was locked up, either in the freezer or in the file chest. And so there was no evidence laying in the open. There was nothing abnormal about the look of the apartment.
And he almost got caught after a 14-year-old victim escaped into the street naked and bleeding. When neighbors called 911, Dahmer managed to talk his way out of trouble.
During the incident where the police were called,
Mm-hmm.
and the young boy was returned to you, that didn't wake you up at all? The police on your doorstep?
They were in the apartment. They were actually in the apartment, and there was a dead young man in the bedroom on the floor. I couldn't believe it when it turned out that they didn't see anything. I couldn't believe it. And yet,
oh, they saw. Oh man,
Right.
so it goes back to what people was Amina and Nemesis was saying in the comments, that how the police and things were helping him. He just said they returned the Asian boy to him, bleeding, running naked into the streets, right, yeah, Nemesis, you're right. They returned the boy to him. He's saying they went into his house. He got a dead person on the floor, and somehow magically they didn't see the dead person on the floor in his house, while they're returning the naked teenage boy who's bleeding to him, who was screaming, trying to get away from him.
Right. And just a little bit of common sense. Why would at that point, he was, a younger white male, have this teenage Asian boy in his house? And how did the boy end up in the street, butt naked, bleeding and screaming? Right. So just the idea that they would think it was normal or something that was routine to just take the boy back to some white man who clearly is not related to him, and turn him back over and leave for the night.
That's crazy. Yeah, they were complicit. And saying the two police investigators were criticized but not investigated for prosecuted anyway. So wow, so Jeffrey Dahmer did not work alone. So it's truly a system of craziness.
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't people like Jeffrey Dahmer be produced? Because they will be protected for a while to go out and do what they need to do. He was an instrument and a sacrificial lamb, because they used him to go. Well, I ain't gonna say they used him, but they allowed him to go do what he did, and then after that, well, you got to punish him now. So he's expendable, but let him go out and if he gonna take out some Negroes, why not?
Right. But this type of mindset we've been seeing more and more lately backfire on them. So just the lax, not look beneath the surface type of attitude. Oh, they white, so they all right. They're not going to do nothing. We've seen several cases of this backfiring on them, and them ending up 6 feet under, being put 6 feet under by these nice, unassuming looking white boys, or something else. And so it hurts them too. That's the thing. White supremacy, everybody is hurt by it. And even the people who perpetuate it are paying a price for it.
That's crazy. Kobe Jai, I feel you too, my brother. That's wild. This is wild. Because we were living in the time of Jeffrey Dahmer, so I didn't watch the series, but dang. Yeah, but I'm flabbergasted, but I shouldn't be, because we know how the system works and we know how the police be doing, especially when the victims are not of their own. So, wow. All right.
Yes, it did shock me, but not enough to quit. That's how strong the compulsion was.
Jeffrey Dahmer describes the unspeakable with no emotion. It is as if he sees his victims as objects, not people. In fact, when he confessed, he remembered every horrific detail of what he did to them, but he couldn't remember their names.
Do you ever think about your victims?
I've often wondered why I haven't had more dreams or nightmares about what I've done. For some reason, it's like it's blocked off from part of my mind. If I dwelled on the subject all the time, I wouldn't be able to function.
Jeffrey Dahmer prefers to hide from the difficult truth about himself. That has always been his pattern. Even during his trial, he found a way to tune out.
You're wearing glasses now.
Right.
You didn't during the trial. Why not?
I didn't want to. I felt uncomfortable looking anyone in the face. I didn't want to see anyone's face clearly. It helped me disassociate myself from what was happening.
See? Another example, he had to separate himself from this natural object to be able to destroy it. See, that's that mindset. He understand the culture that produced him. Wow.
One woman in particular.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out one thing when he was talking about how, well, I think the lady said they weren't people to him; they were objects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so again, we're looking at a crazy serial killer, psychopath, Jeffrey Dahmer. But please understand that your rank and file white person actually has a lot in common with him, right? So it was, I can't remember exactly when it was done, probably sometime between 2015 and 2020, a study that showed that white people, there's a part of your brain that when you watch somebody doing some type of routine act that you would have done before, so eating a bowl of cereal, picking up a newspaper, anything, there's a particular part of your brain that starts lighting up, and it indicates like empathy, so that you recognize like, oh, okay, they're doing something I've done before. So anyways, this study showed that the typical white person has more brain activity watching a dog perform routine tasks than they do a black person.
Yes.
Okay,
right.
so I just want us to understand what that means. So when he talking about he was able to do all these things to these people because they were not people to him, they were objects to him. And so what that study is saying is that you are not people to them. You are an object to them, right? So they recognize more empathy for a dog than they do a black person. And so I just want us to understand who and what we dealing with. And at any moment, that nice smiling white person whose brain still work like a white person's brain could turn into Jeffrey Dahmer for you under the right circumstances.
No, straight up. So now with that being said though, so the terms white supremacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Joseph Paul Franklin are all synonymous for today's show. So whenever we're saying Jeffrey Dahmer or Joseph Paul Franklin, we're saying the same thing as white supremacists. Just note that. So thank you for that.
Really got angry. What did you think when she was doing that?
I couldn't blame her a bit. I'm surprised there wasn't more of that.
What do you want to say to the families of the victims?
I had no intention of hurting them.
Yes, you did.
I was extremely selfish. I was only thinking of myself, my own pleasure, my own perverted desires.
You know, the families of the victims don't believe in your conversion or your sorrow.
Oh, right. And if I was on their end of the table, I wouldn't either. Ultimately, I'm accountable to the Lord Jesus Christ. He'll be my final judge.
Can your sins be forgiven?
The Lord Jesus Christ's shed blood is powerful enough to wipe out even my sins.
When he had to deal with some of the terrible realities of his life, Jeffrey Dahmer's conversation would veer off into scripture. Like many other criminals, he claims he has found God in prison, and his daily routine reflects his need to shut out the world.
I usually wake up at 6:30 in the morning, go eat breakfast, and then sleep until noon, wake up for lunch, and sleep until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, eat dinner, and then spend the greater portion of the night watching TV.
He is up all night because he cannot face the daylight and the monstrous crimes that put him behind bars.
I try not to think too deeply about anything, because then I get depressed. I try to figure out why this happened, what started these thoughts in my head at such a young age, whether this has any meaning to it, or whether this is all just a horrible coincidence, all the events in my life. I feel that I'm better off here than I was on the outside doing what I was doing.
You're glad you're in prison.
I think it's best for everyone, right?
Right.
And you heard Jeffrey Dahmer say,
no, he right. It's best for everyone. So he can't go out, be out here just doing what his nature tells him to do. But I believe they interviewed him to try to humanize him a bit. Because that's what it seems like, the questions that they're asking and the way they're asking the questions and how she is responding and the commentary around it. It's like a bit of humanizing him. They're trying to say he's a criminal, but this is why he's a criminal. There's a story behind the criminal, and it's like, well, it's a story behind every criminal, but you are trying to push the envelope a bit too hard to say that there's a human inside this monster. And I'm pushing back that whatever human that was inside that monster died a long time ago.
No, they're trying to humanize them because they can relate to them, right? They all have these little thoughts that most of them are successful in, pushing to the back of their minds, right? But he was one of the ones who didn't, and so he actually acted it out. So yeah, there's fascination surrounding that because again, they had the same thoughts, but they were just strong enough to push them aside, and so they're fascinated by the person who actually acts it out. They are giving his life story because it sounds like theirs, right? He said, "Wasn't nothing wrong with him. He chose to do all this," right? So yeah, this is just who they are. Even in the fact that he is now has been washed in the blood of the Lamb. Hear him tell it, right? So now he got Jesus, but Hallelujah. While he was out and Jesus was everywhere to be found, and he never found him. Now that it's his interest to find him, now he's a card carrying member, just like the young lady from a few weeks ago. She was in it, and then when it became expedient or beneficial for her to not be in it, then she didn't believe that anymore. Hallelujah. But all of this points back to their issue, their fundamental issue which is their lack of connection.
Yep. I'm going to destroy, dominate, and control everything I can. Why? Because when I was in middle school, I never understood how so Jaquan down the street killed 2 people and they're mad at him, but Alexander the Great wiped out groups of people and they celebrate him. And when I was young, I didn't get it. I was like, why is Alexander the Great celebrated for all the killing that he did? Oh, because they're celebrating their culture. Got it. Now I got it, because they're celebrating their culture. That's why they romanticize world conquerors. They romanticize the gangsters of the early 1900s. They romanticize these people. In a way, they're romanticizing Jeffrey Dahmer and Charles Manson. Matter of fact, ain't no in a way. They romanticizing all this stuff because it's their history and it's their culture that they are basically promoting.
Right. And that's what they were, that's what the contention was when they produced that Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix series. There were a lot of people, especially it was the families of the victims, and their representatives were coming out and saying, y'all have basically glamorized this man's demonic behavior and immortalized it, on film for people to watch. And so, yeah, they were, glamorizing what he did. But again, that's because they can relate to it and they are excited or titillated by watching the people who actually give in to the urge when they did not.
Yep. Oh man, yeah. All y'all in the comments, y'all on point. These people are crazy. Please hit that like button, though. Please hit that like button. We got 285 people in here. Please, let's have 285 likes. I mean, it's because you here. It's because you here. It's because you here.
You had 300 last week, so.
Hey man, look, man, they thought you were gonna be here, so. So we're getting into, this is a video by like I said, the brother Dalio Kenyatta. He's breaking down the Iceman inheritance. So we're going to get some of the rhetoric from the book to go along with what we just heard from Jeffrey Dahmer, because he crazy. He is. Well, Jeffrey Dahmer is a true white supremacist. Let's say that.
Welcome to the Bro Diallo book review. I'm a Bro Diallo. And the book we're doing today is actually a book I wedged into our book review schedule because I was going to do Amos Wilson, Black on Black Violence, the Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in Service to White Supremacy. But then I thought to myself, I can't really go in on black violence without first talking about white on black violence, which is the progenitor, which is the provocation, which is what profits, which created the conditions and reality of black on black violence. So I didn't want to appear, which I've been accused of being insensitive to the struggles of the brothers in the streets, the black gangbangers, and the other black on black reactionary, criminal, predatory element, without acknowledging that I understand the larger power dynamics and social hierarchies that create and feed and perpetuate black on black violence and ultimately profit from black on black violence. So, saying all that to say, this is why we're going to do black on black violence after we talk about white on black violence. And there are many books, very good books, like the Psychopathic Racial Personality by Dr. Bobby E. Wright, or Yurugu by Dr. Marimba Ani. There are a lot of really good books written from a Pan-African or an African-centered perspective talking about white violence. But I decided to start with a takes one to know one approach, which is a white man talking about white folks, which, you know, I like to do that. I like to get perspectives from the people that I'm talking about, or from their academics or their communities. Anyway, so that's why, if you were expecting Amos Wilson's Black on Black Violence, that will come after this. But if you're watching this and you've already seen it, then that's fine too. It's not necessarily.
I remember that, Renee. We covered that, Renee.
Yeah, but let's proceed. We're reviewing today The Iceman Inheritance, Prehistoric Sources of Western Man's Racism, Sexism, and Aggression, written by Michael Bradley. And the intro was actually by Dr. John Henry Clark. Well, at least the version that I have. This is the only version I'm familiar with, but I know there are other versions or volumes of this. But the introduction by Dr. John Henry Clark, which gives it a lot of weight, a lot of legitimacy from my point of view, if you know the scholarship of Dr. Clark, for a book written by a Canadian, a white man, a man from a genocidal settler state, talking about European aggression and genocide. So it was first published in 1978 by Cato Publishing.
Trees like flowers. How you doing?
Michael Bradley, who was a scholar and I think he was a scholar in anthropology originally, but he also studies history and cultures. So anyway, let's just get into the text. Or as Wise Intelligence said when I saw him in a concert one time, let's just get through this because this is pretty heavy. And I think that this should be required reading on anyone who is interested in challenging or even understanding. And in fact, we have to accept there are a lot of people who want to understand racism and white domination, but have no intent on subverting or challenging it. A lot of Black people actually study or understand the system from capitalism to U.S. politics so that they can elevate or extract more personal wealth from it, but have no intention on challenging it. But if you are a true person who wants to challenge systems and institutions of global white domination, this book should be on your required reading list. So now we start. This is like a fourth start, but bear with me. Chapter 1, Greek Gifts, Western Technology. He talks about racism as the predisposition of the white race, which is a pretty bold statement to start your book with, saying that the only population or the only identifiable group of humanity that engages in racism are white folks. And it's been an ongoing online debate asserting that Black people can't be racist, and a lot of white people trying to, with persecution complexes, talking about Black Lives Matter, what about white lives? So back decades ago, this is an ongoing debate, but I agree with him that the white race are the cultivators and the maintainers and solely responsible for any concept that you have, modern concept of racism and racial superiority and racial discrimination, even though we can find from India to Saudi Arabia to Asia, places where now non-white people engage in racist policies, racist attitudes, and racial discrimination. But if you follow any of those formerly colonized or currently colonized or non-white or off-white populations, if you follow their history of racism or racial discrimination, much of it leads back, if not all of it leads back to the white race or Aryan culture or Western culture and concept. He states that white impacts, or what are some byproducts of white racism, is nuclear war, environmental pollution, resource rape, climate change. And these are some of the life-ending behaviors that are born out of what I would call, or what Dr. Bobby Wright calls, the psychopathic racial personality, but in this text he calls the Iceman's inheritance or mentality or culture. Some defense mechanism that the white race has developed to challenge these very serious accusations are denial of race. And he says that denial of race is permeating, back in 78, modern liberal anthropology, where they try to have a post-racial or a non-racial, I don't see color point of view or ideology. And then they also say that progress as vindication, saying, well, despite all of the genocide, all the colonization, all of the mass extinction, all of the environmental destruction, how can you condemn it when you have so much progress? Progress in medicine, progress in technology, the technology that I'm using to communicate. So this was a fair trade-off, or even an inevitable outcome of progress.
How are we defining progress, though? How are we defining progress? Because if you're talking about progress through a disconnected lens, through a lens that's not connected with nature, because think about what he was just talking about. All of that destruction happened. But hey, technologically, or in this material world, we have more of this material things that we can create than we ever had in the past. Even though, like, we're destroying the earth, we're destroying our environment, we're destroying the people around us because we have these technological advancements. Because, you know, I could talk to somebody on my watch now. You know, I could do all these things with this technology around me. So because we have all these technological advancements, then, hey, we have progressed. We are better off as human beings, even though we're destroying our atmosphere, we're destroying the water, we're destroying the plants, we're destroying the animals, we're destroying the air. Everything around us in this natural world is being destroyed, while everything in this physical world is being improved upon. So it's like all of these, you have many different scholars who are talking about the same thing. He's talking about it through the lens of Michael Bradley. We're talking about it through the lens of Yurugu, but it's the same thing. Their progress is, as long as this physical world keeps improving, we good. Because it makes me think about, I can't remember the name of the billionaire. I think he recently just passed. He had 9 heart transplants. He kept taking hearts and living, and he was trying to get to 100, but his body was trying to be like, nah, bro, we done. But he kept taking hearts.
I know who you're talking about. God, what's that family? The rich, you know, Illuminati family. He's yeah. So yeah, he did finally pass away. Mm-hmm. Right. So all of this stuff, again, just goes back to their inability to connect. Right. So that's why while they have the technological advancement, all of the environmental and social waste that's created by that technological advancement, they don't really concern themselves with at all. And it's because they aren't connected to the land. They aren't connected with each other. And so somebody in the chat actually made an excellent point a while ago. They were saying that, you know, they value the object over the person. And it's because they can't connect, right? So the only way they can connect, and even Jeffrey Dahmer mentioned this, is they connect is by possessing. And so that's why he was toting the skull around with him, toting somebody, you know, spleen around with them. That all in some misguided, psychopathic attempt to have connection.
There you go. It's oh man, it's so backwards. It's so backwards. Instead of just connecting with nature, but it's a part of their culture, and that's why you got to listen to the Tuesday lectures on here when Dr. Marimba Ani is really going in and breaking down the concept of Yorugu, which we're learning right here. So, but please hit that like button. It's 350 people in here now. I appreciate it. Let's get this information out. Please hit the share button and hit that like button again. It's free, so we can make sure more people get this information, because we learning and growing over here. We love being Black, and we love to make sure that we get actual tangible outcomes. So let's go.
Of course, the book argues that you didn't need it. He also talks a bit, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, about how other societies had advanced comparable technologies to Europe at the time of the European expansion, whereas you could even argue that European domination of the world has, if not warped, slowed or diverted human progress in a manner that harms more people or creates more harm for humanity and all other living things than it does good. So Western technology is not a good trade-off, or European or Western progress or scientific progress is not a equitable trade-off for nuclear contamination of the planet and the threat of nuclear holocaust, environmental pollution, ecocide, resource rate, and climate change. And in those white impacts, he doesn't even talk about the human impacts of genocide, colonization, extermination, loss, or warping of native or non-white culture. He also talks in chapter 2 on Greek gifts of Western philosophy and the domination of Western philosophy. He goes on further into progress and states that our progress has succeeded in blanketing the entire world in a dreary anti-human monoculture, which consists of very real threats to human survival as well as ugliness. So even Michael Bradley, a product of and a member of the white race in Western culture, says that if we really took a sober step back and we got away from the media, the marketing, and the promotion of Western progress and all the products that are promoted to us, we'll see that it is a very poor trade-off. In chapter 2, he also talks about, which is so interesting, because when you talk about white aggression, almost a conditioned response is that people will want to talk like, well, Africans had slavery and Asians went to war. What about Genghis Khan and all these other, or the human sacrifice of the Aztecs and Mesoamerican warfare. So he makes a point to say that European or white Western man's violence is different. They have what he calls normal violence and abnormal violence. And normal violence is the type of violence, the provocations for violence that are present in all human population, all human cultures, which is population expansion. As your population grows, you need to expand territory. So population expansion also internally breeds conflict. Migration breeds conflict. A lot of times you might have a pastoral or animal husbandry centric culture comes against an agricultural or nomadic culture, comes into contact with a nomadic culture. Those are normal causes of violence you find across culture. They're universal forms. And another thing is tyrants and conquerors. All races have produced their Genghis Khans, their Shaka Zulus, and their conquerors and tyrants. That is not unique to Europeans. He also called it the empire and ego proclivity found among some individuals or in some cultures. He calls those normal violence, and what makes them normal is not necessarily that they're healthy, that they're not damaging, but you can find them across cultures. But he said abnormal violence that are unique to Caucasoids is philosophical conflict, killing somebody because they have a different idea or view or conclusion or a different way of structuring their hierarchies, killing somebody based on philosophical ideas, and going to war, waging multi-generational genocidal wars based on philosophical conflicts. You don't find that in other culture. Religious conflict, where even every war might have, well, this particular tribe or this particular religious or spiritual group goes to war with this other group. But if you look outside of Europe, that's never purely, it's always also based on population expansion, migration, and tyrants. But purely religious wars are unique to Caucasoids. And finally, intellectual violence. So So non-material motivations and non-material justifications for violence, he says, are unique to Caucasoids. Another quote from the text: our wart of religion, our inquisition, our philosophical conflicts have no parallel amongst yellow, red, brown, or black men. It is the kind of violence that makes our history appear senseless to other men and senseless and baffling to ourselves. So
yeah, so I've reviewed this piece a couple times, listening to it, understanding what he's saying, because we was talking about normal violence versus abnormal violence. And it goes back to some of the conversations that we've had on this channel in our Friday breakdowns when we were talking about how humans behave, period. Like normal human behavior. Violence is a part of humanity. But Michael Bradley's argument is the abnormal violence. So because we have these fundamental differences, or because, and they come down to fundamental differences in viewpoints and how we see the world, because they're coming from a viewpoint of domination, of disconnection and domination and scarcity, and I have to have this to survive. So we will do what we need to do to dominate you, to make sure that you are no longer a threat to our survival, because we need any and everything here. And they signed up to be the cancer on earth. They signed up to be parasites. It's in their culture. It's in the way they think. It's in the way the like go back, like remember the last time Renee PhD, the last time you were here, we were talking about the Greek gods and how like Poseidon behaves, how Zeus behaves, how Hades behaves, like especially Zeus being the head god, and Zeus being a grapist. Like Zeus see a woman walking down the street, turn into an eagle and go down and SA her. And if this is the god of the culture of like the primary civilization that they're saying, the primary civilized Europeans, and their god is a grapist, like he has no self-control, like he goes down and he just terrorizes and dominates people. Well, yeah, I mean, it's in the fabric of their DNA. It's even in the behavior of their gods.
Absolutely. And just the part where they were talking about crap, I just lost my train of thought.
I almost did.
They evil. No,
yeah. No, they are. I mean, but it's true, because like he's talking about the different type of violence. Like I said, because it was my first time hearing the concept of normal violence and abnormal violence, and I've always had a realistic view of humanity being violent. Because I even thought about it, like when we're talking about African kingdoms expanding, we're talking about Ghana, Songhai, Mali. For them to become as expansive as they were, they had to come into conflict with somebody somehow, some way. So there were some kind of conflict that was happening even on the continent of Africa for these kingdoms to become empires. And so on some level, some kind of violence and some kind of conflict happened. But Michael Bradley is saying on this level of violence that this European have, if you look at violence from all other societies, all other groups of people, this violence had a different root, and it was bred into something that was darker. It's kind of like Bane telling Batman that I was born in the darkness. You know.
Well, and think about it, because he said it was this type of violence was unique in the sense that it wasn't based on something material. Yeah. It could be based on, you got a different idea than I have. Mm-hmm. Or, just basically they could make up a reason to start engaging in violence, right? And so a lot of times that's what we have seen throughout history. Probably the most notable one, or one that most people know about, would be, Hitler, and how he got the people foaming at the mouth, and then that impacted their behavior and what happened there. And so it's important for us to just understand the difference between these people, their worldview, how they think, how they behave, so we can conduct ourselves accordingly, right? Because a lot of times it seems like, even though we've had 400 years of experience with these people, a lot of us
learned.
Right. And some of the stuff we hear is just baffling. Like,
man, look, I look at destruction of Black civilization as a handbook, like as a manual of how to deal with foreigners, outsiders, especially Europeans, but everybody, and the reason why I mentioned that book, because it's talking about enemies from the east, the west, the north, and the south. And that's what I loved about that book. It's like, we can't trust anybody but ourselves, and there even some of us that we can't trust, and we have to understand the mentality of people who come from different backgrounds.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because was it last week you were talking about the FBA stuff, and to a large degree, a lot of what that sounds like to me, at least from the FBA standpoint, is Black American people are upset that we found out that while that everybody else was playing to win, while we was playing to make friends. And so now that we understand, like, oh, these people were trying to act in their own best interest, they wasn't studying us. Now a lot of people are upset, but that's what this boils down to. You are in a group competition for resources. And so everybody else is acting or behaving in ways to ensure that they group get at least they share. They want to get more than they share of the resources, which means withholding resources from you, right?
Even if our skin tone is the same.
Right. Right. If you are a part of my group, right? So I think we just have to be aware and understand what that means and how that should dictate our behavior rather than being upset. Right.
You're right, FM. We are in a war. You're right.
A psychological war.
That is something that we should watch for, especially in a time where we live in the United States and Republicans and Democrats in the United States are talking about a civil war and mass murder, and even bringing about the downfall of their own empire based on conflicts between two political parties that ultimately on 90% of all issues they completely agree upon. So this, even in this modern era, back to the earliest manifestations of European philosophy and religion to now, these conflicts still abound, these immaterial conflicts based on philosophy, intellect, and religious. And he also stated that Western culture is inapplicable, irrelevant, and unsatisfying to non-Caucasoids, which was another interesting segment of the text, because you see so many people have had Western culture imposed on them, and you see wealthy Black people who can afford the best that Western culture has to offer, and there always seems to be this void or this emptiness, or these people who come in our communities and sell us wealth and getting money and establishing ourselves within our oppressors' culture, and we see the madness born out of. A lot of us look at it as just tabloid fodder, from the Jackson family to the Serena Williams, that these wealthy and established Black people literally go insane. It's because the more access you have to white folks, or as Muda Baruka said poetically, it's not good to stay in a white man country too long. And he said it's not good for an African mind, an African mentality, to be subjected to Western culture without any type of filters or unrelenting filters for too long. But going on in that same chapter, he talks about the Chronos complex, which is man attempting to treat time like we treat physical space and social position, non-biological past-future communication, which is mostly present in religion and writing. The Chronos complex, treating time like a commodity or a physical thing that we can possess, control, or dwell within. A lot of that ties back to colored people time versus white people time. And most European anthropologists, when they went into the non-white world, talked about how non-white people dealt with time and their concept of time and the progression of time and doing things in a timely manner. And even colonizers were often frustrated with their newly colonized workers and slaves because they say we were lazy because we didn't work on a clock. And the clock didn't control or dictate our movements, and which made it hard to exploit us and made it even harder to extract profit from our labor. But due to Western propaganda and Western imperialism, now we have Black folks who also have that or promote that Chronos complex. I don't sleep, I get the work done, being on time and things of that nature. But I continue. There's also the concept of surpassing the past and limiting the future. Whereas Europeans want to do better than their ancestors, and they set up conditions where their descendants can't proceed beyond where they do. They handicap their descendants, which is another psychopathic thing. And a lot of things that are discussed in the Iceman's Inheritance point out things that have become normalized or become so predominant in our lives, we don't even recognize it. So look for progress to surpass the past and dominance. How Europeans, especially elite and wealthy Europeans, use their inheritance or property that they pass on to generation, and it's often seen as something not so much celebrated, but it's something that creates a lot of conflict and anxiety. They are in perpetual state of war, and one thing that war is known for amongst all the other crimes is that it destroys the future. Young people fight the war, and the young people who survive the war are severely damaged. And you look at all the European conflicts from Vietnam going back to the Crusades, they had whole generations lost. And the warriors who fought those wars come back and feel like they have no place in society. So we have to look for instances in the past and the future of the European or the Iceman's concept of surpassing constant progress, modernization, abandoning the past, but they want to cripple and handicap the future. This is also seen in objectivism. The world didn't matter before you were born, and the world ends after you die as an individual. That's found in Randian or the philosophy of objectivism by Ayn Rand. I think Donald Trump is one of the best modern manifestations of this sick mentality. But we have to move on. The book,
but it's giving a framework of a culture of people that a good number of us continue to try to assimilate with. A good number of us see as these are the people who are going to lead us to success. These are the people who are going to lead us to freedom. They are the beacons of civilization. They are the beacons of humanity. And it's ignorant because these are the same people who are fed the propaganda about how vile and evil we are, and with no historical context. And that's why it's like this book, The Miseducation of the Negro, is a very, very, very great book, because when you and PhD, I'm sure you've encountered this, having conversations with some Black people who are ignorant of the history, of the culture, of our history and our culture, and our interactions with Europeans and their history and their culture, and they've internalized the propaganda, they've internalized the lies, and so the very nature of the European is how they view themselves and other Black people. And it just be ironic because the whole history is there, but they view themselves and other Black people the same way that they should be viewing these vile, especially the Europeans who subscribe to the system of white supremacy. They see themselves and us and other Black folk like white supremacists.
Right. Well, there's a saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Right. And I think that, in many instances, that's just a submission to, what they perceive that they can't beat, right? They aren't able to get out and change the narrative or make people, see it from a different perspective themselves. And so the easiest thing to do is just to go along with the dominant narrative, right?
Right.
And, who was it? It might've been Umar even, who talks about how it is lucrative to go along with white supremacy, or it's more lucrative, right? We can't incentivize people to hold the pro-black line, right? We don't have the resources to. How do you incentivize? Most people need money, right? And so that's, you know, how they're able to deal with us all the time, get us to abandon whatever it is we're doing, because for most of us, money is the, you know, our highest held, most cherished value. And so all they got to do is offer a little money, and we run off to do whatever it is that they telling us to do. And so that's a problem that we're going to have to figure out a solution to.
He would know about that money, wouldn't he?
Yeah, certainly. Absolutely.
Hey, the stuff he said that came back to bite him.
Right. He's a living example.
Right. I'm sorry. Somebody had a question. It says, Monogram says, is that why so many of them are Jewish? And if you're talking about the white supremacists, there are a good number of white supremacists that are Jewish, but I think the Jews just fall in line with all the other ones. I mean, remember within whiteness, all the different groups of white people are competing against each other, but then they will come together to compete against us. So you still have that going on with them. Tribalism is still real throughout human beings.
Right. And at least over here, one thing that we should have all recognized recently is that anti-blackness is the currency of upward mobility. Right. Okay. So everybody come over here and understand, oh, you got to try to take a shit on black people in order to, you know, climb the ladder. Right. You come over here, you next to black people. Then at some point you able to step on their backs to, you know, climb above them. And then you give them your ass to kiss. Right.
Afro, cuz I don't know what Buy Black movement you was talking about, but we've never had a real Buy Black movement that actually worked in America. I don't know. You know about one, PhD? Because I don't know about one that actually really worked.
No, and we're not gonna have a Buy Black movement when black people don't control the means of production for anything, right? And so what this person is talking about, which I'm still not familiar, is they're saying we had a successful buy from a black middleman movement.
Something. I mean, you know. So, yeah. Let's go.
Also states nuclear weapons, rampant technology, environmental pollution, resource impoverishment are all results of an extreme Chronos complex. They belong at the white man's doorstep. I think that statement stands on its own. Let's keep moving. We are human, but in perspective of the entire population, this is also Bradley speaking for himself. We are, which white people are human, but in the perspective of the entire human population, we are a pathology. We are abnormal, atypical man. This is also articulated by modern philosophers like Tom Hartman, who said that European history is the history of a virus, how a virus would act on an individual, invading the body, weakening and destroying the very host that it needs to live, or a parasite. Europeans have acted that way on a planetary scale. Again, this is all white folks. I'm gonna try to keep talking about white folks, talking about other white folks before I go into black to talk about black on black violence. Going on, in chapter 3, he talks about the child of ice and fire, where he tries to get into the origins of white people and the very concept of whiteness, and explain white dominance of the world. And this, we're coming up on my absolute favorite quote of the book. But 3 major points from chapter 3 is that there is no evidence of innate intelligence differing amongst races, meaning that there is no scientific confirmation that any other race has more intellectual ability or potential than any other race. Glacial evolution is unique to Caucasians. That's the 3rd point we have to remember. All other races or cultures, even if they came like the Inuit or the Eskimo people came to live in extreme environments through migration, all of their initial evolution and development happened outside of the glacial or frigid areas, except for Europeans. And 3, their behavior is a byproduct, or European behavior is a byproduct of glacial adaptation. So that is what makes them unique. And then in, again, my favorite quote from the text, where he's talking about how did white people come to rule the world? How did white hegemony become a thing? And he states, not intelligence, nor morality, nor spirit, but aggression is responsible for the white man's quote unquote superiority. Aggression is responsible for the expansion of Caucasoids, both geographically and culturally, at the expense of other races. And that's it at a hands down. He also goes on to state, when the Worm Glacier or Worm Ice Age released the white race from its tutelage under fire and ice, is when the pathological temporal aggression was unleashed upon the world. So the world became a new place and subject to something it never experienced before at the receding of the Worm Glacier or the Worm Ice Age. In the concept, in his notes on superiority, he states that superiority is never internal. Your superiority is dictated by external conditions. Or let's just take something out of the realm of race. Let's say basketball. Michael Jordan is a superior basketball player. And the only thing that's noteworthy is because this is a society that values or has been indoctrinated to value basketball skills. But in a society that didn't have basketball, Michael Jordan's superiority would be all but irrelevant, or in a society that devalued sports altogether, or put up soccer or cricket or sports that are almost all but alien in the United States, Michael Jordan's superiority or dominance is relevant to the conditions that he was born into and what the society's value. So superiority is not, even if you have a superior skill that makes you better than anyone else at a particular thing. I could be the best butter churner in the world, but no one churns butter anymore. So my superiority is all but irrelevant and thus non-existent. But it's dictated by external conditions. So white people having control over external conditions that we need to live is what grants them their so-called superiority of the people, not.
But that makes sense. That makes sense. If I control the game, why wouldn't I be superior? If I make the rules, control the game, if I can dictate and control who's a part of the game, who can be a part of the game, and even the outcome of the game, why wouldn't I be superior? And if you can only control whether you are good at the game or not, and I can control whether you can even live in the game, I would be superior. And then their culture breeds them to create the game and control the game.
Absolutely. That's why a lot of times you'll hear Black people say, anytime we start to, get a foothold or start to win, they just change the rules of the game, right? And so because it's their game. Right. And so that's why it's so important for us to understand what's going on around us, understand who they are, who they have always been, who they gonna continue to be, so we can stop playing defense and actually go on offense at some point, right? So just stop being reactive to everything they're doing and actually create an agenda and start trying to advance our own agenda for our own betterment. But we gonna have to stop having things be so convenient, right? So people
saying you're gonna have to give up the biscuits.
Right. And because I'm thinking, people will rah this stuff, but the first thing we would have to do is start educating our own children. Like whatever we do that's going to be successful is going to start with our children. Yeah. And so having your oppressors educate your children is just totally nonsensical. It's counterproductive, and it just ain't going to work. We ain't going to be able to win if we leaving that responsibility up to the people who are our adversaries here.
Become powerful or continue to get boo-booed on, not even stepped on. You at the bottom of the toilet if you continue to be 4th, 5th, 6th class citizens. They're gonna open up their cheeks and let it go on you. And I want to say it like that, and because I want you to think about it. I want it to stick in your minds and think about it. Like you either become like we always saying, if we in the schoolyard, if me and PhD were in the schoolyard, and PhD will come up and whoop my ass every day from 5th grade to 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade to 9th grade, from 10th grade to 11th grade, and finally the first half of 12th grade. And then so I got a semester to make my mind up what I want to do. And then do I even have the ability to do it? And if I don't, I'm just talking, because I could talk junk about her all day. I don't like this, I don't like that. But when she come around, big bank take little bank.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me for my notes, because he's talking about chapter 3, fire and ice. So for my notes, it says Bradley synthesizes the environmental contrast between temperate ice environments and tropical climates. He argues that survival in ice age Europe produced psychological and sexual adaptations. Examples he uses is increased territorialism, different mating strategies that shape later European behavior. This chapter begins to transition from culture to technology. From culture and technology to a psychological standpoint. So getting to understand the shift and why the European, specifically the white supremacists, behave the way they behave. Like you said, do not expect your enemy to do right by you and have your best interest at heart. Afro Cruz, I agree with that. But we are crazy. We have to, like you said, PhD, we have to be the ones educating our children, but we can't be the ones that saying, I don't want to do it. Well, you want your enemy to continue to educate your child? The miseducation of the Negro. This book was written for a reason. It was written for a reason. And the reason why we still having these conversations to this day is because not enough of us have used the information. So we're going to let this video go a little further, and then we're going to get to this last serial killer, because we did serial killer information and then serial killer. And please make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe. If you like this information, please subscribe to this channel, because we get it in like this over here all the time. And big shout out to PH Diva coming over here, dropping this knowledge. I don't do it by myself over here. So thank you all, and let's continue this thing.
Anything they were born with or innate to them. Nothing is innate about racial superiority or inferiority, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but this book is just, it's chock so full of so much insights. And thirdly, on superiority, white superiority peaked at the dawn of World War II and has been in steady decline since then, moving whites to a status of inferiority, which is a very interesting point of view, especially if you are born in this modern era, you live in this modern era where it still seems like white hegemony, white power, white domination is all pervasive. But if you look at the sun never setting on the British Empire, if you look at European imperialism, if you look at the power from the African continent and the decolonization struggles, Latin America and the non-alignment struggles, and the Caribbean, and you look at the rise of China, and you look at India and how the economic fulcrum or the economic nucleus of the world is shifting east, you'll find that the system of white domination has been eroding since World War II, since they fought their last big murder orgy that they try to triumphantly tell us was a great war against fascism, when it was fascist versus fascist. I love to say, because it's true, that the Nazis military lost the war, but the Nazi ideology won the war. Look up Operation Paperclip if you really think World War II was an anti-Nazi. But I digress, and I'm getting off. So
I talked about Operation Paperclip in a video I did a while ago. So you have to look up Operation Paperclip. You have to.
That's something to give us hope. But again, also in the text, he talks about how the life-sustaining capacity, my words, not his, but basically he points out how the ability for us to even live and survive on the planet through growing food and having shelter and navigating the climate is being destroyed. So there's this race between the natural devolution or the natural erosion of white power and the planet's ability to sustain our lives. So we can't just sit back and relax and say, well, we know white power or white supremacy peaked in the World War II and is declining. But so is the life-sustaining capacity of the planet. It's also declining because they still have a significant amount of power, and it's eroding too slowly. So we have to do what we can do to accelerate this process. He goes on to talk about in part 2, chapter 4, race in the Neanderthal Caucasoids and the concept of race. Bradley states that it seems that of all races, white people have been inordinately concerned with the pro or con of racial differences and their possible social or biological differences. All races, long before there was any such thing as a white man or European or Western culture, cultures that are centuries older, civilizations and races that are centuries older than a European, recognize that there were differences in how people look. You find ancient texts and people would describe people with facial features, skin color, and hair textures, as well as how they dressed, how they communicated languages. But no other race was so preoccupied with how those phenotypical or physical or surface differences determine the value or better or worse status or hierarchy of people than the white race.
The white race made African features and any features that was more that darker or that didn't exude those pure European features. It was basically punitive. You were punished for not having those features, and then punished further for not reinforcing the ideologies of the white supremacists. I'll take it even a step further. Yes, what he's saying, but it was punitive to be black. It is punitive to be black. It is punitive, rather.
And there are some.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go. Do your thing. Do your thing.
I'm listening.
Okay.
People who mythologically say that capitalism created racism. White people invented racism in order to justify slavery. But if you go as far back prior to the Ma'afa or African enslavement by Europeans, if you go back further, you'll find that the Greeks, the Romans.
Dora Vale. Now we know you just playing. PhD, but I don't know if you saw the comment. Dora Vale was talking about she ain't PC. We know you just playing.
Oh no, I didn't even see it.
Oh no, Dora Vale was just messing with you. Nah, because you dropping these gems though. Keep doing your thing.
The Vikings, they all had hostile concepts of people that had different skin color, hair texture, facial features, phenotypes in them. So capitalism is a byproduct of racism and white aggression, but it is not the source of it. So we can get you, and we also have evidence, the communist, the rise of European socialism, they were all racist. You can't find any socialist organizations. The socialists and white anarchists are better at acknowledging and challenging racism within their ranks, but they've always been present from the IWW to the Bolshevik Revolution. But we're getting short on time, so I'm going to try to pick up the pace here in the concept of race. I'm going to try to pick up the pace.
So we're going to stop for the sake of time. We're going to stop this right here. But I do have the link to the full video in the description because I want to get to this other serial killer. So taking in all of what you've heard Jeffrey Dahmer say, taking in all of what I've read, taking in all of what PhD has said, taking in all of what Michael Bradley has said in the Iceman Inheritance and what Dalio Kenyatta is saying. Taking all of that in, right? And then now let's listen to what's it called? Joseph Paul Franklin. This is another crazy serial killer. So remember, and looking at it from a perspective of war too, these are their warriors or their soldiers that they sent out in the war as well. It don't always have to look like straight up combat. So please hit that like button. We got 500 people in here. Please make sure we got 500 likes. The likes are free. Let's make the likes match the views. Please, 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 so we can spread this information. I love you all. Let's be black. Let's be great. But let's know what's going on. And I love that PhD is harping on us understanding the behavior of the people that we're trying to interact with. So let's make sure we do that.
You are about to enter the criminal mindscape of Joseph Paul Franklin.
Did you feel like you were actually hunting human beings?
Well, I was. You wouldn't call that hunting them? Hunting them and shooting them.
On a mission to start a race war in America, Franklin ruthlessly murders 20 people.
We're asking him to open up and talk about who he is, his crimes, why he did what he did.
One thing we can tell you at this time that we're positive of is that there have been 2 people shot here at this location.
Larry Flint, the publisher of Hustler magazine. He and his lawyer were walking down the sidewalk when somebody on the street opened fire.
His methods vary, making him nearly impossible to catch.
We know that they were shot by a sniper. The rifle is a high-powered rifle with a scope on it.
Remember the 2 teenage boys in Cincinnati that you shot? You could see that they were young.
The well-known Klans leader said, when I go out to kill rattlesnakes, I don't make any difference between little rattlesnakes and big rattlesnakes because I know the little ones will grow up and bite me when they get big. So I looked at blacks the same way.
I totally understand that he will be in control of this interview, and that is the way I'm planning it.
Now, a veteran FBI profiler enters death row and steps into the criminal mindscape.
These interviews for me are fascinating. They are absolutely the most intriguing experience that I've had in the FBI.
Mary Ellen O'Toole spent her career at the FBI, including 15 years in the Bureau's famed profiling unit.
I work specifically on profiling serial murder cases and assisting law enforcement all over the world in how to understand these offenders and how to make sense out of their crimes. I think Joseph Paul Franklin will be very interesting to talk to because if you scrape away the racism, he is still a cold-blooded, predatory individual who was driving around the country shooting and killing people.
We not, but we not gonna scrape away the racism, lady with the I love black men haircut. So we're not gonna do that. Miss Little One, thank you for the $2 super chat. We're gonna get back to her hair in a minute. Hold up.
Look at all this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
Ask ChatGPT the root races and who descends from them. I'm gonna do that. I definitely gonna do that. Says he looks crazy, right? PhD, what you think about that haircut? So
that is a part of the I'm a white woman who dates black men starter pack. So yes,
it is. But we will not be removing the racism over here. I hate when they do that. Like, no, let's look at it from his holistic view. The racism was a deep part of his motivation to be who he was.
Right. But I think, she's saying like, oh, well, let's look at it aside from the racism because she know racism or not, so many of them think like this.
Mm-hmm. Nah,
right?
Yeah,
get out of it either way, right?
Right. Right. No, I get it. But we just ain't gonna do it.
Absolutely.
But that's why we do the studying we doing, because even with racism there, we're still able to look at the behavior of the human being and the behavior of this group of people.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so to say that that's the reason that he killed is very difficult for me to accept. Interviews like this are extremely helpful. Will they identify all the answers? No. But they will give insights into why certain behavior at the crime scene, why not certain behavior. Who are we looking for? What were they like 20 years ago? What was their family like? How are they deciding on their victims? Why did they kill some victims and some they didn't? He doesn't have to talk to me. He does not have to open up to me. He can walk out of that interview anytime. By way of background, I'm a retired FBI agent after about 28 years as an agent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah?
And
but you learned a lot during that 28 years.
A lot. And actually the last 15 years I've spent back in the FBI's profiling unit.
Yeah.
And we're located at the FBI Academy. And most recently, my area of expertise was in the serial killer unit.
Well, I don't claim to be a serial killer, though.
Okay, and I want to talk to you about that.
I don't put myself in that category.
Okay. Can you tell me what your idea of a serial killer is?
Well, I've read in the news the definition in the newspaper, you know.
Sure.
And it says that somebody who commits various killings with cooling off periods in between.
Tell me why you don't fit into that definition of a serial killer. Let's say Ted Bundy, who was out when you were out.
I don't feel like I have anything in common with the dude, you know. I'm just a completely different type of person, you know. A lot of these other criminals, you know, these serial killers, they were just into one thing, strangling women and stuff like that. See, they've been trying to associate me with the scumbags like Ted Bundy who were killing innocent women, you know, and take everything political away from my case over and over again. You would hear on the newscast, serial killer this, serial killer that, to try to incite hatred against people like me, you know. I wasn't out for my own pleasure. I was motivated by love of the white race.
Joseph is a serial killer, and he's different from other serial killers, just like they're different from him. There's no one profile of a serial killer. So you have cases where you were a sniper, and then you have
where I was not a sniper.
Where you were not a sniper. So you really have both.
Yeah.
In 1977, Joseph Paul Franklin, age 27, is a versatile criminal, a successful shoplifter and bank robber who is ready for murder. He claims to have found his very first victims, somewhat spontaneously, in Madison, Wisconsin.
He was in the parking lot of a shopping center. He had his .357 Magnum tucked alongside of him.
This first case in Madison, Wisconsin was kind of an unplanned thing.
What put you in that parking lot that day of the shooting?
Well, I was driving around and I saw a couple of young girls standing at a bus stop. I pulled over and picked them up. I would often do that. I would just pull over and see a couple broads waiting at a bus stop and offer them a ride. They said, are they going to this mall? So I gave them a ride to that mall. And a pretty tall black dude, about 6'2", was sitting in the car with a white girl. And I beeped at him because he was driving too slow. He then began traveling about 5 miles an hour just to aggravate me, you know? So I sat on the horn then, you know? Real loud. So he stopped his car in front of me, got out of the car and began walking toward me. He had this real scowl on his face at first, you know, walking toward me. So without even thinking, I just reached down there with my right hand and whipped out my .357 Magnum with a 6-inch barrel. And then when he saw the gun, the scowl turned into a surprise, you know, and then he just closed his eye like that, and just keeled over.
When, man, the way he tells that, it's almost as if when that black man got out of that car, like he got an erection, was like, yes, this is my time. This is it. This is here. Like, yeah, I laid on my horn. This is the perfect time for me to do this. Like it was his unconscious urge and lust for blood just came out. He got an erection, picked up that gun and did his thing.
Well, you know, so when they first started showing him, I was wondering, how many black people, like what would the average black person think if they saw this man, right? What would they think of this man? Would they think he's a raging racist? Would they think that he's a potential murderer, somebody that they should stay very far away from? And I don't think that's the case, right?
The average black person, no, the average black person, nah, because you know we have a lot of I wish a motherfucker would in there, so.
Right, but even I don't think he looks harmful to most of us. Exactly, and he don't look harmful. And if he tries something, I can whoop his ass because I wish a motherfucker like that would try me. Right.
Yeah.
So, but when you listen to him talk about how the interaction with that mixed race couple and the black man getting out and him grabbing his gun and you know blowing the man away. But just think about all the road rage cases we've been seeing, or the cases where a black person just walk up to a white person's house innocently and they start shooting through the door. Right. So a lot of them think like he does, right? They see you and their first inclination is to get to shooting. Yes. They also look harmless to us as well. And so I want us to like really pay attention to who we're dealing with.
You make, but no, great point, because it goes back to the white lady who, the MAGA white lady who claimed she quit MAGA, but that is one thing that she hit on is their presentation is nice. The presentation is friendly, is welcoming. It's all these things. They come off as peaceful people, but they're violent on the inside. But that's a great point, because now I ain't gonna lie, I would look at him and be like, that white would look crazy in the mug. That's me though. That's me. And I see a couple other people in the chat saying, he look crazy to me, but the majority black folk, I know black folk right now that'll walk up on him and probably try to put their hands in his pocket just off real. You know, so
right. Yeah. He does look crazy. But I think a lot of white people look crazy that we don't, and it doesn't alarm us, right? They look normal to us. They look like regular people. They don't look harmful to us. That's the point. Right. Yeah, and so the point is they can all be harmful, regardless of how they look. They all got the potential to harm you.
Exactly, and especially ones with this haircut that's on the screen. Especially the ones like that. So, Little Miss One, I did just chat GPT the what it said, the root races, and now this is interesting. It said where the idea of root races come from. The concept of root races originates primarily from Helena P. Blavatsky in 1831 to 1891. Her books, The Secret Doctrine, The Theosophical Society. It's not African-centered. It's not African-centered, not indigenous, and not based on biology or archaeology. It is a mystical evolutionary myth influenced with Victorian era racial thinking, Hindu cosmology, or misappropriated Hindu cosmology, European occultism, social Darwinism. Says the 7 root races, according to Theosophy, is the first root race is the Polarian, non-physical, etheric beings, no sex, no bodies, allegedly existing millions of years ago. You got the second root race, Hyperbarian, semi-physical beings. Third root race is the Lemurians, first fully physical humans. Fourth root race, Atlanteans. The fifth root race, the Aryans. Sixth root race, the future humanity. Seventh root race, final humanity. So I mean, if that's something that some of these people are into, you know, it would make sense. This is my first time coming across this information about root races, so I'll check it out a bit more. But that's a bit interesting. But you know, looking at everything that goes into shaping the psychology and the environment that would breed psychopaths like this, and then, but also for us, once again, being careful how we interact with a psychopathic coach.
That was a very risky thing for you to do. Yeah. There you were in a shopping center, and it was daylight, and there was a whole bunch of people. Why did you shoot the woman in the car?
I figured, well, I'm against interracial couples. She was one half of an interracial couple, you know. I thought, well, I might as well get both of them because I'm gonna probably get caught for this. So I shot her and sped out of the parking lot. Man, I was burning rubber, man, you know, trying to get out of there. And luckily, there was a whole bunch of lights all in front of this mall, you know, and every single one of them turned green for me. I got on the interstate and took off and got out of Madison, Wisconsin.
It's pretty amazing that that's the first time that you committed murder. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty cold-blooded thing to do to a complete stranger.
Yeah.
Joseph identifies a first murder, which is a double murder at point blank range. Joseph has very good recall of that incident, broad daylight in a parking lot of a shopping center. My question is that in fact the first incident, or is that the first one that he wants to talk about? What were you feeling at the time you pulled that trigger?
Fear, you know. I feared if I get into a fight with that guy, I'll be arrested for all this bank money I got in the trunk. I just hit the bank in Columbus a few days earlier, you know.
He had a very difficult time describing his own internal feelings. He could say what he was thinking, but he could not articulate or describe how he was feeling.
I don't know. I guess it's kind of like, you know, you see this stuff going on TV a lot, you know, and it seems to desensitize you. Maybe that was it.
I did not do an official assessment of Joseph as to whether or not he was a psychopath. but it's my opinion that he does show traits of psychopathy. This underlying personality disorder known as psychopathy does seem to be present in most serial killers. It's difficult for people who do have traits of psychopathy to identify feelings because they don't feel the same way that regular people feel.
Coming up.
Did you feel like you were actually hunting human beings?
Well, I was. You know, it's the way people would sit down there and wait for wild game, I guess.
Before launching his career as a serial killer, Joseph Paul
that's what I was thinking, Doorbell.
was a deeply troubled young man, searching for identity and belonging, first among evangelical Christians, then with right-wing extremists.
During the early 70s, you kind of see a metamorphosis with Franklin. He begins to associate with the Nazi Party. He begins to associate with the Ku Klux Klan. And then you see a little bit of the trial and errors of his criminal behavior. You became, for a brief time, a member of the American Nazi Party and even the Ku Klux Klan.
I was involved with the party, and then that was in 1973. Then
you weren't a member very long.
Just a year for that one, yeah. I didn't stick with any of them. A lot of them were just filled with FBI informants and people just, always trying to get information from you.
But how did these groups think about you? I mean, you weren't there for a very long time. Were they too conservative for you?
They were mostly weren't doing anything, Most of them were into talking. That's what the average Klansman and average Nazi, they're all talk, and that's it.
And what were you into?
I was into action, doing things. I wanted to get, actually do something. I wasn't sure exactly specifically what I wanted to do,
So you became kind of a loner.
Yeah. You got to be, because you can't trust anybody.
I thought when he gave that explanation, he was more or less legitimizing why he left those organizations. Even though he touched on it, I think part of the reason he left was because they weren't extreme enough for him. Then you begin to see him focus a little more and more on what he ends up being for the rest of his time before he's arrested, which is a sniper.
St. Louis, 1977. 2 months after Franklin's first murder in Wisconsin, a group of people chat in the parking lot of a synagogue. They are about to become the targets of Joseph Paul Franklin's first sniper shooting.
There was a total of 5 shots. One shot struck a man in the chest, which killed him. Police that are arriving on the scene didn't know where it was coming from.
One thing we can tell you at this time that we're positive of is that we have the weapon, the rest post, and we have 5 spent cartridges, which is right up there at that telephone pole. It appears to be someone planned to come here and do just this.
This was not an impulsive act whatsoever. This was an act that required planning, lots of patience. He chose this location. It had all the features that he was looking for or that he needed to set up his rifle, to give him an escape route, and to be able to sit there for 2 hours, laying in wait for his perfect victim. The victim is almost the last thing he decides to do before he commits the homicide.
For his first sniper killing, Franklin boldly leaves the murder weapon behind, having removed both his fingerprints and the serial number from the rifle. Though St. Louis police eventually traced the gun back to Texas, it would never lead them to Franklin.
Like this cat. What? And remember, once again, like we said earlier, Joseph Paul Franklin is a synonym for white supremacists. There's a drive to kill, a drive to destroy. There's a lust for blood, a lust for power, a lust for control. It makes him feel good. And the lady is, giving her psychological account of everything. But like I say, when we look at the information that we've already come across, but also looking at the information in Urugu, looking at the information in the Iceman inheritance, but looking back at European history, Look at the history of the European, how the European has existed in the world and in relation to African people. And that's why the Iceman inheritance is important, going back to their beginning in the caves and how they, I guess you could say, they were bred in the caves, and the mentality that would come out of the caves that will be a cancer to the rest of the world, exacting violence, and I guess if they want to say revenge on the world, that's what they want to call it, but being a total cancer, being a total parasite to the world, extracting as much out and not pouring anything in, and the only thing that matters to them is the physical manifestations of what they can create, because they're so far away from nature. It's not even funny, but they will destroy any and everything that will remind them of who they're not, and remind them of being a I guess you could say a threat to their thinking, their way of life, or even their domination. Because this dude, he don't just need an ass whooping. They need to run over him with an army tank.
But it was interesting to me because she's sitting there, explaining different things she's picking up from him throughout the conversation. And she's basically is saying, I didn't diagnose him, but from what I'm hearing from him, he is a sociopath,
right?
Or a psychopath, even worse. But their culture in general, or their worldview, if you look at it, is pretty psychopathic, right? So even what we're talking about from Yurugu and the Iceman inheritance, some of the traits associated with psychopathy is a lack of empathy. All these things surrounding not being able to connect emotionally, right? So lack of empathy, little or no guilt or remorse, shallow feelings, right? And so again, just their inability to connect to even themselves. That's how how detached they are. They can't even connect to themselves, much less to their environment or the people around them. And so humans being social beings, I don't know if they almost like humanoid, right? They're not quite as human as the rest of us.
Right. That's getting into the root races, the theories of the root races. So yes.
Right. So they're not as human as the rest of us, but I really, we can look at them and understand that. But in an everyday sense, when you are going throughout the course of your day, in the course of your life, when you're encountering these people, it's just important to understand, be able to access all of this information at that time to be able to guide and dictate your behavior appropriately.
If you want to be successful. Well, we're going to let Michael Bradley tell on himself a little more before we wrap this thing up, because we hit the 2-hour mark. And, I don't like to have people, well, especially my guests, I don't like to have them on here all day, but we getting it in. So y'all show PhD with some love. I appreciate you being here. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I'm thanking everybody having civil discourse today. It's okay to disagree, but having civil discourse today, I appreciate that. So let's let him keep talking.
Being a sniper is a very unusual type of serial killer. You choose the place that you're going to shoot. You're kind of off, so it minimizes any contact whatsoever with the people you're going to shoot. And I'm wondering, what is it like when you're laying there getting ready to have a person walk in front of your sights?
The way people will sit down there and wait for wild game, I guess it's the same, hunters who find a tree stand or something, it's a similar situation, I guess. Just sit there and wait until the target appears and shoot. I would just stake out an area, find a good place to hide, bushes or just a vacant yard, as long as it was dark, And I knew that I could see them, but they couldn't see me. You go over everything, every little step you'll take, so that when you do get all your adrenaline going, you can just follow the plan that you already had in mind. You don't have to worry about getting so scared that you can't even move,
Did you feel like you were actually hunting human beings?
Well, I was. You wouldn't call that hunting them?
I would.
Hunting them and shooting them. Well, you know, a lot of people in the military do the same thing all the time. Kill people they don't even know. Some of the heroes of this country were the same way, you know, but they killed the enemy soldiers, so they're not looked down, despised by the society, whereas people like me are. Some people are just born homicidal is what I'm saying. And believe it or not, you'll find a lot of people in the Bible who fit into that category who are prophets of God. Look at all the Philistines Samson killed.
He's implying, how can you judge me for doing the same thing that people in the Bible have done and heroes in Vietnam have done and soldiers in Iraq have had to do? As though he's saying, I had to do this. This was a good thing. I mean, it may sound bad, but it's a good thing and I had to do it. So don't judge me on the basis of my actions, because I'm not that different from people in the Bible. I'm not that different from heroes in Vietnam and in the Iraq War.
Coming up.
Blacks all over the country would be afraid to walk down the street. I would be terrorizing the entire United States. Just one man.
What a sense of power.
After his St. Louis sniper killing, Joseph Paul Franklin hits the interstates, looking for new opportunities to carry out his racist wrath. From 1977 to 1979, he commits similar shootings in Virginia, Tennessee, and Oklahoma.
You begin to see this really what I would call very mission-oriented serial killer who's killing a lot. He's driving around a lot. He seems to have perfected the method of his killing.
In addition to blacks and Jews, Franklin sets his sights on an infamous magazine publisher who dared to print pictures of an interracial couple.
Larry Flint, the publisher of Hustler magazine.
Oh no, we
and his
gotta
lawyer
set that
were
up,
walking down the sidewalk when
set
somebody on the street opened fire, shooting Flint in the stomach and his lawyer in the side, and then escaped. Both are in critical condition.
To Franklin's frustration, neither the police nor the media recognize that one person is behind this shooting, the one in St. Louis, and those in other cities.
These would have been very difficult crimes to link. There's such a limited amount of evidence at those crime scenes. There's no interaction with the victim, so the detective has very, very little to go on.
By 1980, Franklin finds a strategy he thinks will demand law enforcement's full attention.
So what did you decide to do in 1980?
Well, just to keep doing a whole lot more of them so they could not ignore it, you know. All the law enforcement officers knew all about it, but they wouldn't tell the media that it was a national thing. I guess they figured until we catch the guy, we're not going to give him any kind of national publicity.
That had to be frustrating.
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating, but that just made me want to do even more, you know. That's why I wanted to shoot Jesse Jackson the most, you know. That's the one I stalked up in Chicago, went to Operation Push headquarters up there. Evidently, I might have been a little too obvious because I was driving down that road one day and I looked and saw a car behind me. And I thought, it looks like that dude is following me in that car, an unmarked police car. I'm gonna take the next right, and if he takes a right too, I know he's following me. So I took the next right, and sure enough, he took a right too and kept on going. I thought, somebody's tailing me here, I better get out of town, you know?
The paranoia really, in a way, is very justified because he knows that he has shot and killed people all over the United States. It's that personality trait of his that actually led to his identity and ultimately to his arrest.
After Franklin's plan to shoot Jesse Jackson fails, he stumbles upon another high-profile target, civil rights leader Vernon Jordan.
I want y'all to know that I'm out here doing the white man's work. I want y'all to know. I want to be famous. I want to shoot Jesse Jackson and then this gentleman right here so I could be famous for doing the white devil's work. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, this whole story has just been crazy, especially the fact that he was able to go ride around and do this in several different places. And I understand, you know, it was the 80s and technology was very different. The police, they probably weren't even all on a one unified, you know, system or something like that. But just the fact that he's able to go from place to place and nobody suspects anything until, you know, he's been doing it for a minute and get sloppy.
Right. And because, you know, his targets become very profound now.
Right. And the other thing that stuck out to me was they were talking about, he mentioned how his behavior isn't very much different than the soldiers in the Vietnam War. Their behavior, they went and killed people. It was a religious, something. He was saying that they went and killed people as well. And so what that tells me is that whatever environment these people are in, the outcome is going to be the same.
Well, history tells us that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in psychology, there is a theory called attribution theory. And attribution theory is how we determine the cause of some phenomenon or behavior, right? And so we either attribute it to the person or people, group of people, or we attribute it to the environment. And so when the behavior is consistent and we have consensus, meaning whatever environment the people are in, the behavior persists, then we can attribute it to the people.
Yeah. That's, hey, it matters. It matters. So, all right, well, let's listen to him some more. For a little bit more.
So I left Chicago at that time, headed toward Indiana, and I stopped in Fort Wayne that night, and just happened to hear on the news that Vernon Jordan was speaking at the Marriott Motel at such and such time. I thought, well, if he's speaking at the motel, he's probably staying at the motel. So I called the motel up from my motel room. I said, could you tell me what room number Vernon Jordan is in? She said, sir, that's against policy. I can't do that. We're not supposed to do that. Somehow I was able to convince her to give me the room number. So that's all it took. I was able to set up an ambush outside by the interstate. That's how that went down.
Vernon Jordan is said to be in very serious, but at least stable condition at a Fort Wayne, Indiana hospital this morning, while local and federal officials are trying to find out who shot him and why.
He talks about going after high-profile targets like Mr. Jordan and Larry Flint, and actually stalking them, getting up close to where they were staying and where they were at the time, which really is very stupid. Because when you go after people who are famous, you're going to unleash law enforcement from all over the country.
Was there something that triggered it, that happened to you, or what did you decide that I need to kill somebody?
I was actually trying to get a race war started. That was my goal, commit enough racial incidents all over the country to get the blacks all stirred up, and they would start killing whites, and then the whites would then get angry and retaliate for that, and it would go back and forth until a full-scale race war was going on.
Joseph?
Hey, he said it. I don't even have to say too much, but you heard what he said. You heard his intentions. This is what white supremacists do. So, yeah.
Wanted blacks and Jews to fear that anywhere they went, they could be gunned down. That is such a grandiose scheme, and it's unrealistic. And having unrealistic goals is consistent with people who manifest traits of psychopathy. In fact, that's one of the traits of that disorder, is that they have unrealistic goals. That never would have happened. And yet, he believes that he was capable of being able to accomplish that.
I guess if I would have been able to do it long enough, they would have had to give me national publicity. Blacks all over the country, interracial couples would be afraid to walk down the street. I would be terrorizing the entire United States. Just one man.
What a sense of power.
Yeah, they didn't want to freak out the blacks all over the country. That's why they wouldn't give me all that. They needed national publicity.
Wow, that must have made you feel pretty important.
No, I wasn't really important. It was just the acts I was trying to do. My goal was to get the race war started,
But you weren't successful.
No, I wasn't successful in that. No, I got caught after the Salt Lake City shootings 3 years later.
I think underpinning a lot of his criminal behavior was this need for attention, this need to get credit for these crimes. It's what we call need-driven behavior. And his need-driven behavior was law enforcement recognizing that one person, and one person alone, was capable of creating chaos and fear in the United States.
Coming up.
Remember the 2 teenage boys in Cincinnati that you shot?
Mm-hmm.
You could see that they were young.
Yeah, I was trying to ratchet up the violence.
In 1977, serial sniper Joseph Paul Franklin begins wandering the country shooting people he calls enemies of the white race. His victims are chosen at random, except for 2, civil rights leader Vernon Jordan and Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flint, who were targeted for their high-profile work. By 1980, Franklin, feeling that his crimes are not getting the attention they deserve, escalates his violence.
A serial sniper is a tough offender to understand. He decides who will be in his sights. He realizes that that person's life rests in his hands. So the ultimate thrill and sense of power and control over another human being has to be considered as part of the motivation for being a serial sniper.
It appears that Franklin also decides to expand his target list to include children. On June 8, 1980, the sniper unleashes his pain on Cincinnati, Ohio.
You have 2 teenage boys who were shot and killed in Cincinnati. No one sees anything, no one identifies anybody that was responsible.
The victims, Dante Evans Brown and Darrell Lane, cousins and best friends, were 13 and 14 years old.
Give our brother Dante peaceful rest in this grave. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit come on you and remain with you forever. Amen.
Up until that point, we had not seen really young victims, 13 and 14 years of age, who now were targeted by this serial sniper. And it really suggests that Joseph was changing his MO. He was increasing the number of crimes, and he was even changing his victimology to include these 2 very sympathetic victims.
If we could go back to the choice of you remember the 2 teenage boys in Cincinnati?
The what?
The 2 teenage boys in Cincinnati that you shot. They were 13 and 14, and this was during that period of time that you described that you were going to do things differently.
Yeah, I was trying to ratchet up the violence.
Is that why you picked 2 young teenage boys? Because you had a scope on your weapon at that time, and you would have been able.
Yeah, I had a scope on that little rifle. Yep.
You could see that they were young.
There was only one time during the interview when his body language became defensive, and that was when we started to talk about the homicide in Cincinnati involving 2 young African-American boys, ages 13 and 14.
I couldn't really tell exactly how old they were. I figured they were young, but maybe just 18 or 19 years old, sitting in there in the dark, and seeing just their silhouettes, the shadows, it's kind of hard to tell how old somebody was. I had no idea they were that young.
I knew from reviewing the case and from talking to other people that not only could he have seen through the scope, but he wasn't all that far away from those 2 young victims. When you knowingly shoot young children, the repercussions for you as the offender can be far greater, especially when you are incarcerated in prison. And people think of you differently when you shoot and kill children.
It didn't really matter to me. I had no conscience as far as the blacks go, when you remember the Klan and you spend years around white supremacists, you begin thinking of blacks as non-human. Connie Lynch, who was a well-known Klan's leader, said, when I go out to kill rattlesnakes, I don't make any difference between little rattlesnakes and big rattlesnakes, because I know the little ones will grow up and bite me when they get big. So I looked at blacks the same way.
So it appeared to me that he was speaking out of both sides of his mouth. He was talking about not knowing that they were younger victims, and yet if he shot 2 young boys, he knew that he would get much more attention from the media and much more attention from law enforcement.
Coming up.
I was a little kid and was...
So we're going to stop it there for the sake of time. But that boy crazy. That and matter of well, let me restate that he's not crazy. He's the perfect product of the system of white supremacy. This is what they breed. That's normal behavior for the white supremacists. They breed psychopathic behavior, psychopathic ideology, psychopathic outcomes, environments, all those different things. Like, he was a broken person that continued to be broken, and it had some aiding by the system. We can see him and Jeffrey Dahmer had some aiding by the system, because ain't no way they could just be getting away with all that stuff like that. Nobody knowing. People know what's going on. So yeah, like what's some of your thoughts like on the last couple of things he was saying?
Well, so he was trying to kick off the race war he kept mentioning. And it's we see a lot of people now who are trying to start a race war. They've always been trying to do it, or at least the part of the race war that, where they are positioned. But, previously he talked about how what he was doing wasn't much different than, white folks.
He was telling on everybody.
Right, exactly. And so that's the thing that we have to understand, right? And so it may not look like what he got going on, but we are at war in every scenario, right? So the smiling white people at your kid's school, right? That's war. We've seen Black women being turned away from hospitals while they were in active labor. Right? So Black women going into a hospital while you trying to bring life into the world, that's war. Right? Just in every aspect, we fighting a war on every dimension.
Yes.
And so we have to prepare for that. We have to understand that, then prepare and be able to fight back.
That's why this book is important. This compensatory code. He talks about domination and war on all 9 areas of human activity: economics, entertainment, education, labor law, politics, sex, war, and religion. All 9 areas they are dominating, and all 9 areas they are at war against us, and we have to understand that. And I like that he said that, hey, this is the culture. It's not just me, it's all of us. How many of us are listening to him though?
Right, and really hearing him.
Because he said he told the truth. He was, if that wasn't one of the most honest moments he had, that was one of the most honest moments. And he said, this is how we get down. And if you're not listening to him, you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So but so you got any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Black people, when it was Dr. Maya Angelou who gave us this wisdom, when people show you or tell you who they are, believe them the first time.
There you go.
Right. And so these people been telling us, they certainly showing us. Some of us apparently think fat meat ain't greasy.
There you go.
And refuse to, accept it. But it's important for us to accept it, understand it, and protect ourselves to the extent possible from it. So
yes. Now look, I appreciate you for coming in and dropping these gems on us, and that's why you're always welcome, because you know what you be talking about, well read, and you come in and you do it in such a good way. So thank you. Hey, y'all, the viewers, hey, I appreciate you. The viewers, y'all showed out today. We got up to about 700 views today.
Yay.
So y'all showed out today. So a big round of applause to all of you in the comments. And the comments were civil today. We ain't talking about FBA stuff, so the comments were civil today. So that's good. We just got to learn how not to be emotional when we're talking about things that hit home as well, because we have to have those hard conversations within our own diaspora, within our own culture and all that as well. But inside the mind of the white supremacists and why white supremacy produces psychopathic killers. Now we have a better understanding. Hey man, I appreciate everybody who enjoyed the content, all the new subscribers. Please hit that like button and share this. And I'm on vacation for the next couple of weeks. So y'all gonna see this mug a lot more. Get used to this bald head. So going live again Tuesday at 9 p.m. No school. It's not a school night, so we can get it in. We can go a little longer. Tuesday at 9 p.m. Going live again. And after that, you know, we're gonna do what we do, how we do, and we just gonna have some fun. So Christmas don't really mean nothing to me outside of watching football and hanging with my family. So if you see me live on Christmas, just come on ahead and tune on in, and even the day after that. So that's how we're gonna do it. Shout out to PH Diva. PH Diva, could you don't log off when we get off? I gotta ask you a question, so to make sure I can get everything straight. But to everybody who have been supporting On the Shoulders of Giants from the beginning, everybody who continues to support us, and everybody who loves this content, I appreciate all of you. Y'all know who you are. You make this channel go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All of my subscribers, everybody who's a member of the channel, join this channel as a member. To help support the channel, join as a member, and there are ways to support us in the description. So with that being said, Nemesis, you already know, y'all stay safe. Happy holidays to everybody. If you celebrate, you celebrate. If you don't, you don't. But stay safe. Happy holidays. Let's learn and apply the lessons. Love y'all. See y'all next time.